ആരംഭിക്കാം. ദൈവാൻപന പോലെ തളർത്തിടമേ ഹാലേലുയ്യ. വളരും അവന്റെ വനോൻ കാരകിൽ പോൽ ഒരുപോലെങ്ങും അൽവാറേസ് ഉണ്ട്. പ്രാർത്ഥനയേൻ സമയമീതല്ലോ മോറൽ വാറീസ്
അൽവാരസിനോട് സ്നേഹിതനും ഏറ്റവും കൂടുതൽ ഇന്നത്തെ ജഡ്ജ് നൊറോണയുടെ കല്ലറ അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് വേണമെന്ന് ആവശ്യപ്പെട്ടിരുന്നു. അതാണ് ഇത്. മക്കളിലപ്പൻ കൃപ ചെയ്വതുപോലെ ഹല്ലേലൂയ. ഭക്തന്മാരിൽ ദൈവം കൃപ ചെയ്യും.
അനുഗ്രഹങ്ങൾ നിറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നവനെ
ആകാശത്തെയും ഭൂമിയെയും സൃഷ്ടികർത്താവിനാൽ നിങ്ങളെല്ലാവരും അനുഗ്രഹിക്കപ്പെട്ടവരാകുന്നു. ശുഭപ്രാർത്ഥനയെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് നിങ്ങളെല്ലാവരെയും ദൈവമായ കർത്താവ് വാഴ്ത്തി അനുഗ്രഹിക്കുമാറാകട്ടെ. ദൈവമായ കർത്താവ് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് വിശ്വാസികളായ നിങ്ങളുടെ പലതരുടെ ആത്മാക്കൾക്കും ആശ്വാസം നൽകട്ടെ. പിതാവും പുത്രനും പരിശുദ്ധ റൂഹായുമായ ദൈവമേ, ബലഹീനമുള്ളതും കുറവുള്ളതുമായ ഞങ്ങളുടെ പ്രാർത്ഥനകൾ ഉന്നതമായ അവിടുത്തെ സിംഹാസനത്തിന് മുമ്പാകെ കേൾക്കപ്പെട്ടതും അംഗീകരിക്കപ്പെട്ടതുമായ ആക്കി തീർക്കുമാറാകണമേ.
കർത്താവേ, ഞങ്ങളോട് കരുണ
കൃപയുണ്ടായ ഞങ്ങളോട് കരുണ ചെയ്യണമേ. ഉത്തരങ്ങളുടെ ചെയ്ത് ഞങ്ങളോട് കരുണ ചെയ്യണമേ. വേദനകസ്തുതി എന്നേ ശരണമേ. വേദനകസ്തുതി.
എല്ലാവരും
known as Padre Alvares, was an editor, writer, founder of educational and social institutions, a patriot, and above all a dedicated social worker, who had proved by his actions that the Church was the community of faith, hope, and charity. He was born in Varna on 29 April 1836 to Jose Baptista Alvares and Marina Expectação Lourenço. After completing his schooling at Lortoli and St. Michael's College, he joined the Rachol Seminary in 1853. The education at Rachol Seminary laid the foundation for his affinity towards print media. Goa was then a Portuguese colony being witness to religious persecution and racial discrimination. Political and social turmoil, an anti-Portuguese voice of the Goan community in Bombay, led young Alvares to Bombay in 1859. He joined the Collegio de Jesuit at Mazgaon, Bombay, as a teacher. On 6 November 1862, he was ordained as a priest by Bombay Vicar Apostolic, Bishop Walter Staines S.J. After serving for 5 years, Padre Alvares returned to Goa in 1867. For the next 20 years, Padre Alvares' life in Goa was hugely challenging and transformative. It was during this time he would be known as Apostle of Charity, an educationist, and a firebrand journalist. In 1871, unable to witness the plight of the destitute, he set up an association of charity at Varna to help the poor, beggars, sick, and conduct funerals for solitary souls. Similar associations quickly emerged all over Goa. In 1878, a deadly cholera epidemic broke out. Padre Alvares came to the rescue of those afflicted, at times even carrying them on his shoulders when dead for burial. He even published a booklet, Directions for Treatment for Cholera, in 1885. Throughout his life, he launched a determined preventive campaign against epidemics like cholera, smallpox, and the bubonic plague, and worked hard for the recovery of the afflicted. In 1877, Padre Alvares founded a secondary school, Colegio dos Sagrados Corações de Jesus y Maria in Panji. The year 1876 would be the turning point of his life. It marked the beginning of his rivalry with the Goan political and ecclesiastical establishment. He joined and later became the chief editor of the fortnightly La Cruz. It soon grew critical of the ecclesiastical establishment and the corrupt civil sphere. Soon it was banned in 1882 by Archbishop Antonio Sebastião Valente. Padre Alvares' disgruntled relationship with the Archbishop Valente soon developed into a full-scale war with the authorities. On banning La Cruz, Padre Alvares started another publication, La Verdade, in 1882, and O Progresso de Goa in 1883. With this, he tried to spread his ideas to the public sphere. Adding fuel to the fire, Portuguese Padroado jurisdiction came to an end with the Concordat of Pope Leo XIII in 1886. Protests erupted in Goa, other parts of India, Ceylon, and many other countries. This led to a struggle with native Goan priests and faithful, fighting to retain their freedom, indigenize the clergy, and overthrow European oppression. Padre Alvares became the voice of the fight for the native Goans. His famous lecture on Padroado to the general public of Panjim in 1886 described Rome as the cause of all evils and sufferings of the Indian Church. Later in his life he would write 2 books, A Supremacia Universal na Igreja do Cristo, and Antioch and Rome, in 1898, in which he would denounce the supremacy of the Pope as the head of all Christians and call out the atrocities of Roman Catholic Church. His lectures and writings raised ire with the authority, but also brought him into contact with 2 prominent figures of protests, Dr. Lisboa de Pinto a Goan Portugal parliamentarian, and Stephen de Silva of Colombo. They formed the Padroado Defense Association with a vision of a church governed by natives, retaining the ethnic ethos and culture. On the recommendation of Padre Alvares, Dr. Lisboa Pinto was sent to both Rome and Lisbon with the petition against the Concordat, but was met with disappointment. Padre Alvares was soon excommunicated by the Roman Catholic Church in 1887. In the same year, Padre Alvares left for Silo to head the newly formed independent Catholic movement in South Asia. Bona Mor Church in Colombo became the headquarters. In his travels to Ceylon through Travancore, Padre Alvares came into contact with the Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church, an ancient Indian apostolic church with episcopal succession and autonomous in nature, which had stood against Portuguese and Roman Catholic regime. Greatly appealed Padre Alvares. In 1888, after a meeting with Malankara Metropolitan Pulikkottil Joseph Mar Dionysius V, Padre Alvares joined the Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church. However, he and his movement continued to use the traditional Latin rite and Latin attire, thus establishing a Western rite under the Holy Malankara Church. On 15 August 1888, Padre Alvares was appointed Apostolic Prefect of the Independent Catholic movement. Later in the same year, Padre Alvares was excommunicated by the Bishop of Colombo. Meanwhile, the Padroado and propaganda conflict reached its peak in coastal Karnataka. Padre Alvares set sail to help. However, the news of his arrival reached Bishop Nicholas Pagani of Mangalore, who conspired to ward him off. He was manhandled on his arrival at Mangalore port. Determined, Padre Alvares finally reached and in February 1889 started the mission center at Brahmavar with 5,000 families, with the Goan saintly priest Padre Az Norona being appointed as its first vicar. Today, the Brahmavar community is the only surviving congregation from the vast independent Catholic movement. Following this, Padre Alvares was excommunicated for third time. On 29 July 1889, he was consecrated as the Archbishop for the Diocese of Silo, Goa, and India, excluding Malabar, and given the title of Mar Julius I at the Old Seminary Kottayam by Malankara Metropolitan Pulikkottil Joseph Mar Dionysius V along with Saint Geevarghese Mar Gregorios of Parumla, Metropolitan Paulos Mar Ivanios and Metropolitan Paulos Mar Athanasius. The independent Catholic movement had over 70 churches spread across Silo and South India. Archbishop Mar Julius brought many more into the Orthodox Church, ordaining and appointing them at various mission centers of the independent Catholic movement. Notable was Padre Luis Mariano Suarez, later known as Mar Basileos Suarez, of the Sirocaldia Church in Kerala. He further initiated congregations in North America, Great Britain, China, Singapore, Malaysia, and South Africa. The sphere of influence and contribution of Mar Julius in evangelization led to the formation of many regional Western Rite Orthodox churches worldwide. Notable was the consecration of Joseph René Villate as Mar Timotheus Metropolitan of North America in 1892, and Alexander Stewart and Deacon Joseph Leicester Line for Great Britain. In 1894, Archbishop Mar Julius returned to Goa and started a weekly Obrado Indiano. He once again pitched the idea of Goan independence. Archbishop Mar Julius urged people to turn against the pigs who call themselves European, and ended with cheers for independence. His Grace promulgated the Swadeshi ideology. People were asked to boycott foreign products. He implored the Goans to emigrate to any territory where everything was Indian. He called upon the people to be self-reliant and diversify the existing home-based industries. He introduced high-yielding tapioca to Goa and later wrote a book on the cultivation of tapioca in 1916, all to make sure people to come out of poverty and exploitation. Archbishop Julius was now a threat to colonial political and ecclesiastical authorities. The year 1895 was tumultuous. A false accusation of sedition was cooked to condemn Archbishop Julius. He was charged with inciting the people to fight for liberation, discrediting the Portuguese, and insulting government officials. He was arbitrarily arrested and locked up in a filthy, illit, and poorly ventilated cell. Again, he was arrested on charges of denouncing the Roman Catholic religion. He was subjected to the humiliation of being stripped of his episcopal habit and ensigns and taken through the streets of Panji in his underclothes to the lockup of the court. For the third time, he was again arrested and charged with the offense of high treason, but the justice found him innocent. On request of his close friends, Archbishop Julius escaped from Goa. He sought political asylum from 1904 to 1906 in Castle Rock, a British territory adjoining Goa. In 1906, he was again arrested and jailed with baseless charges. Archbishop Julius' life was filled with harassment, humiliation, and persecution. Archbishop Julius left Goa and continued his missionary works in South India and Ceylon. Another important chapter in the life of Archbishop Julius came around in 1909 when Patriarch Abdullah of Antioch visited Malabar and demanded full temporal and spiritual authority over the Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church, followed by the excommunication of Vattasharil Givargis Mar Dainisha VI. As a well-known scholar, Archbishop Julius comprehended the illegitimacy of that excommunication. As a patriot, he understood the dignity of an Indian Malankara metropolitan. Consequently, Archbishop Julius, along with Mar Ivanios, declared support to Metropolitan Mar Dainisha VI and played a pivotal role in the meeting of the managing committee members, which was held at MD Seminary Kottayam on 27 June 1911. This culminated in the establishment of a Catholicate in 1912. Archbishop Julius continued actively in the affairs of the Malankara Church. When Saint Geevarghese Mar Gregorios of Parumla had left for Holy Land pilgrimage, Archbishop Julius was given the temporary charge of the Nirnam diocese. He also visited numerous churches and has been part of consecrations, ordinations, and sacraments throughout Malankara. Notably, he was a co-celebrant at the consecration of renovated Nirnam parish in 1911. After Portugal became a republic, Archbishop Julius returned to Goa a year later. First World War and the epidemic in Goa had taken a toll on people. At this time, he chose to serve the poor and the needy, especially the lepers and the scavenger community. He would move from house to house in tattered black robes and a ball collecting alms for the people he had chosen to minister. This great saint of the 20th century died on 23 September 1923 at the age of 87, battling dysentery. His commitment to the Indian Church and the Orthodox faith was so great that he refused to reunite with the Roman Catholic Church even on his deathbed. A citizens' committee, including the Chief Justice of Goa, conducted the burial at St. Innes Cemetery, Panjim. The funeral procession took place in the streets of Panjim on a grand scale. The inscription on the tomb read, "A great humanitarian missionary and a great patriot." The holy relics were shifted to St. Mary's Orthodox Syrian Church, Raibander, in 1979. In 2005, Catholicos Basileos Marthoma Paulos II beatified Archbishop Julius I. The ideology of this great humanitarian, missionary, and patriot, his determined crusade against foreign colonialism, corruption, and discriminatory practices, his stress on spiritual, political, and economic self-reliance, the creation of a Atmanirbhar Bharat, still echoes today. His life, a testament of call to the Church to be the community of faith, hope, and charity.